Eglon and Ehud sound like two made-up names in a Star Wars movie, but in reality they're two biblical characters who had a fascinating interaction. Their account began when their first judge, Othniel, had died and Israel sinned again. Now the sons of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord, Judges 3, verse 12. A new generation had come along and, hearing the siren song of sensual service, turned away from Yahweh and began worshiping the gods of their pagan neighbors. Baal, a god, and Asherah, a goddess, were their primary deities, Judges 3, verse 7. And their worship was very sensual in the worst possible way. In order to satisfy the god and goddess, men and women would participate in ritual fornication. This debasing so-called worship allegedly promoted fertility and prosperous harvest, but in reality was just an outlet for sensual debauchery to satisfy human lust. Yahweh was not honored or tolerant of their sinful choices and allowed Israel to be oppressed by Moab under its king Eglon, Judges 3, 12 through 14. For 18 years, Moab and King Eglon ruled over and oppressed the nation. Finally, Israel remembered to call on Yahweh, and he raised up a savior named Ehud, Judges 3:15. Ehud went with the delegation to pay tribute to Eglon, but as they were leaving, he turned back for a private word with the king, Judges 3:19. Eglon was intrigued and sent everyone out and allowed Ehud into his private chamber alone, where Ehud killed him. The description of his death was unusual because of two oddities about the men. First, Ehud was described as left-handed, so he hid a blade that was accessible to his left hand. When they were alone, he could reach for the blade, and Eglon, who would be watching his right hand, wouldn't expect it and didn't have time to defend himself or call for help. Second, the text describes Eglon as a very fat man, Judges 3:17, kind of like Jabba the Hutt in Star Wars. So when Ehud stabbed him, the 18-inch blade was swallowed by the fat of his stomach and left behind as Ehud calmly left and locked the door behind him, Judges 3, verses 21 through 22. Because it was so quick and quiet, Ehud was able to leave, and the king's men thought he was just taking a nap. By the time they discovered the body, Ehud had escaped and was able to raise an army to overthrow Moab's oppression. So what does this unpleasant story tell us? Really just one thing: the awful price of sin. See, there's nothing cute or clever about sin, even when it is cloaked in so-called sensual service to God. Nothing can hide the stench of death that follows it. Ultimately, only one death was able to pay the full price of sin, the death of Jesus, and thankfully God was willing to pay it. However, we must be careful that we don't turn our worship into a sensual service to satisfy our own lust. Just some thoughts for today's Morning Minutes in the Bible on Sensual Service Saturday. Until tomorrow, this is James McClenny hoping you have a great day.